What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. My name is Chris, and I'm joined by two of the greats in this industry, Jerg and Dame. Fellas, how are we this week?
We're doing good. We're doing good. It's championship season, boys. We're I'm not going to spoil it. We're going to talk more about it, but we're seeing a champion on the way to being crowned. The final round of the Stanley Cup Playoffs could be here soon. Well, will be here soon. I'm excited. We're going to see champions crowned, and that's what sports is all about here.
I've been better. Well, disabled right now, but nothing that can't stop me from doing this podcast. But life's been better, but we'll be back soon, better than ever.
Yeah, Dame's on the IR list because totally not his fault, by the way. There was another clown that hurt him. Playing softball, right, Dame?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not gonna ask questions, nor do I want to. But Dame, I hope you. I guess I hope you feel better. Not sure. Maybe not. All right. Pretty decent week this week. We got NHL news, as Jerk said to us before we went live. There's one team confirmed for the Stanley Cup, and I hope he gives us some encouraging news regarding the Rangers and if if there's still hope, because I know the series is tied, I believe.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That. Oof. Anyway. And then we're gonna NFL talk, fellas. It's been a while. There have been some contract extensions that have occurred. And then we have NBA Finals talk. We're 3 games in. Game 4, I believe, is tomorrow. We're recording on Thursday, so Game 4 will be on Friday. We're just going to discuss the series and how it's gone so far. Were we correct in our predictions before the finals actually occurred? All that junk. But yeah, NHL, NFL, and NBA. And as always, we start off with the best, NHL. Jerg, the Ice Prince, talk to us about what do you got?
The Ice Prince, that's a new one. I might run with that one, actually. We're just gonna put all bunch of different words after ice, and we'll see how many stick. But in terms of NHL, yes, as I mentioned, Chris said in his opening monologue to break down what we're talking about, there is a team that is confirmed for the Stanley Cup Final. The Colorado Avalanche defeated the Edmonton Oilers in the Western Conference Finals in a sweep. Mind you, I'll get to the details of that in a second, but they swept them to win the Clarence S. Campbell Trophy, which is the name of the Western Conference trophy for the champion. They are making it to the Stanley Cup Finals for the first time since, well, funny enough, the franchise's last Stanley Cup victory that came in. I want to say, I always confuse the years because Detroit and Colorado they were two of the teams that really ran the late 90s, early 2000s. So I always confuse their early 2000s Stanley Cup. But I believe in terms of the Colorado Avalanche and the last time they won the Stanley Cup, it was 2001 was the last time that they hoisted Lord Stanley, or the players hoisted Lord Stanley above their shoulders. Jesus. So the Avs is the first time in 2+ decades that they're making it to this point. Obviously, a lot's changed. But, just first off, caps off to them. Congratulations. Colorado had a stellar run, to say the very least. I made note of this last week when I kind of broke down both series. Colorado's kind of been, funny enough, the prince that has been promised the last couple of years in regards to teams that people have tried to put as Stanley Cup favorites year after year. Colorado has been in the conversation for years now. And for 3 straight years, they've lost in the second round. And it was really becoming a question for this team. When are they going to get over the hump, and how far are they going to go when they finally get over it? And the answer is they're going all the way to the Stanley Cup Final now with their sweep over the Edmonton Oilers. Just for Colorado in general, like, what a job that team has done when you think back to it. And it's really weird. I remember in the early 2010s, Colorado made a surprise playoff appearance or two, but then they struggled again for a couple years. And I want to say it was the 16-17 season, if memory serves. My timeline could be a little bit messed up, but there was a midpoint in this past decade where Colorado was one of the worst teams in the league again. And the guys even said themselves after this Game 4 victory, it's like, in those dark times, like they didn't think that they were going to get to this point, right? And just the success that organization has had recently, now they finally make it to the Stanley Cup Final with this core after last season's playoff loss when they were the President's Trophy winners going into the playoffs last year, and they lose in the second round. And the guys even said after that loss, like, hey, we got to do something here. We got to win something. They had to make progress, and they did. They win the West now, and they await the winner of the East. Just a lot of props to the way that organization has really built itself. I hate the whole built not bought narrative. I think it's a little bit overblown by fans, But I will say, for the Colorado Avalanche's perspective, they really are a built organization. They drafted Nathan McKinnon, they drafted Mikko Rantanen, they drafted Cale Makar. Those are really the three pillars of the organization, and then all the other pieces have been acquired via various means, whether it's on the blue line with Bowen Byram being a drafted kid, or Devon Taves, who was a stellar pickup in a trade acquisition. That was a phenomenal move that Joe Sakic pulled off, whether it be the rest of the forward core and guys like Valeri Nichushkin, former top 10, I think, pick in this league. He left the NHL for a bit, came back, and then Colorado swooped in and got him. Just a lot of Nazem Kadri was an amazing trade pickup. Just everything that Colorado has done to build up this team, that's a model organization. They drafted their main core, and then they traded from there to surround and support. That was a phenomenal job. So just all the respect in the world to the Colorado Avalanche and the fact that they've got to this point. And no matter who they're going to end up facing, it's going to be an electric Stanley Cup final, because you got some of the best offensive players in the league on just that team alone, without even knowing who's going to come out the East. So that's amazing. In terms of their sweep over Edmonton, Game 1 was played when we did our last playoff update here on the pod. Since then, obviously, the Avs, they won Game 2 4-0. They won Game 3 4-2. And then they win Game 4 6-5 in overtime. It was a wild game, to say the least. Colorado was down 3-1 entering the third period. They tie it up. They take a 5-4 lead with just over 5 minutes to go. But then Edmonton ties it at 5-5 to force OT. And then in overtime, Arturi Lehkonen scoring the series-winning goal. Fun fact, actually, he also scored the series-winning goal for Montreal when they made the Stanley Cup final over Vegas, when they made it to the Stanley Cup final over Vegas last year. So back-to-back years, Arturi Lehkonen with the game-winning goal to send it into the Stanley Cup final. Good for him. He's a playoff performer, all things considered. But just for the Edmonton Oilers, a little bit of eulogy of them. Hats off to them. The fact that they made it this far, I think a lot of people have been, questioning the roster construction of this team, and having two of the best players in the game today with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. There's been questions on how far they could really go in the playoffs. Deepest playoff runs, at least. This was just the second time they ever got past the first round with McDavid. And for them to get to the conference finals, obviously it sucks that they got swept. You never want to go out like that. But there is now the chance of a really bright future in Edmonton, and they should be able to tell themselves going forward. It's like the standard for this organization is that they need to now make it back to the Western Conference Finals, and they need to even take it a step further, and they need to make it back to the Stanley Cup Final. But just a great job by the organization. I think Jay Woodcroft had an amazing coaching job by him. He's been the interim coach this whole time, and he gets them to the Western Conference Finals. So if you're smart, Edmonton, and that's a big if, but if they're smart, that they'll take the interim tag off, they give him the money, and they let him be the head guy, because he really did wonders for that team this past season, and they do whatever they can to support the rest of the team. It's going to be a very tricky offseason not tricky, but there are a couple things that they need to really look at in terms of tooling the roster more. But Edmonton, just a really good job overall, and just shout out to the guys on that team that were really playing through it. Like I've made mention before on the pod that the hockey playoffs, one of the things about them is that when you hear the injury reports of guys who got hurt and like what they played through, like a lot of people think it's for excuses. It's really not. It's to show what these guys played through. Leon Draisaitl for Edmonton, it doesn't sound terrible on paper, but he had like a, I forget what it was deemed, but it was a bad ankle sprain. And when I tell you, seeing the games on the ice, there were times where it looked like he was in pain just skating, not even doing anything else other than just regular skating. The fact that dude was as dominant in the playoffs as he was insane. Him and McDavid combined for 65 points in this playoff run. 65 points in like 16 games between the two of them. That's absolutely and utterly insane by them. Darnell Nurse played with a torn hip flexor, apparently. Like, he suffered it late in the first round series, and he played the whole second round in this whole conference finals. So that's like 10 plus playoff hockey games with a torn hip flexor. That's otherworldly, to say the least. So hats off to the Edmonton Oilers, man. They really they tried their best. They fall short, and it sucks. And McDavid was not happy in the post-game presser afterwards, obviously. But they deserve all the credit in the world for getting to this point. And now the expectation and the hope, because I'm a massive fan of the game overall. I want Connor McDavid to make it back to this point. I want to see Connor McDavid win a Stanley Cup. they need to get back to this point, and they need to do whatever they can in the offseason to improve this team. And there are some obvious ways to do that, but we will wait and see, of course. And as the summer progresses, we're going to talk about NBA free agency. Trust me when I say NHL draft and NHL free agency will come up on this show from time to time, and I will end up taking over and maybe bring on a guest or two, bring some more hockey friends into the mix in regards to that. So that was the Western Conference side of things. The Eastern Conference side of things, as Chris alluded to, it is the Tampa Bay Lightning and the New York Rangers are playing Game 5 tonight. I believe it was just Game 1 that was played the last time out, and since then it is 2-2. Before I really get into it, Chris, I mean, what do you want to know about this series just in general? What do you want me to key in on? Because you were saying the whole time last week, it's like hoping for the Rangers. You were very excited that they were up 2-0, but now it's 2-2. So just what do you want to know? Do you just want me to flat out say if the Rangers still have a chance in this series? Because I know New York fans are some of them are scared right now.
Well, I know they blew Game 3 because they had it for the taking, and then they kind of collapsed towards the end, I believe, and that would have been 3-0, and that would have likely sealed the series, but they lose that 2-1, and then I think the Lightning could just kind of beat them down for Game 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if the Rangers had a shot at winning this series, they would have had to gone up 3-0 or 3-1. But now that it's tied, I feel like, and not even being a hockey fan, this being tied kind of shifts the momentum. So now I think the Lightning might take it, unfortunately. But I mean, the Rangers have been here before, but the Lightning are a different beast from what I know. So, I mean, I guess their chances compared last week to this week, I don't know. Talk to me.
So New York accomplished something that no one has done the last couple of postseasons, and they were able to beat Tampa Bay in back-to-back games. That was a huge accomplishment. I said it throughout the playoffs, and the whole thing was, if you're going to beat Tampa at some point, you got to beat them in back-to-back games in the series. Technically speaking, realistically, you weren't just always going to exchange games back and forth with them, because that's what happened with Toronto in round 1, and we know who won that series at the end of the day. It was Tampa. So yes, New York just thoroughly dominated in Game 1. Even though Game 2 is technically close, they were up 3-1 at one point in that game. Tampa didn't score until late. It was New York had control of that game for the first 2.5 periods. Tampa came on strong at the end, but it wasn't enough to take that game. And then Game 3 to 4 happened. And like you said, Chris, the situation in and of itself, New York is up 2-0 on Tampa for a lot of the game. Then halfway through the second, the Lightning score, and then then they tie it early in the third, and in the final minute, Andre Palat does it again. This dude just knows how to come up clutch for Tampa Bay on a number of occasions, and he does so, getting the game-winning goal. And that wasn't the last time that he bothered Rangers fans, because then in the next game, he had a goal and an assist in that 4-1 victory for Tampa to tie the series up at 2 games apiece, going back into Game 5 against New York. Like to your point, obviously the Rangers still have a chance here. This is an interesting position because there's some inexperience on this team. They have the experienced coach, they have a couple experienced players, but for a lot of these guys, it's the deepest they've gone. So it'll be interesting to see how they perform tonight. But I'm fully expecting Tampa Bay to win tonight, and I'm fully expecting them to win in Game 6 and to once again for the third straight year get the Prince of Wales trophy and go to the Stanley Cup final. It's nothing against the Rangers. Hats off to the Rangers that they got to this point. They are at least a year or 2 ahead of schedule with making it to a conference finals appearance at this point, when it looked like they had to go through a rebuild. And they did rebuild, to be fair. They got some high draft picks. But the fact that they're at this point, that they have as good of a team as they have, an amazing goaltender, the amazing head coach, which the whole thing is to keep Gerard Gallant for the future. Don't be stupid like Florida or Vegas. Make sure you keep him for the long term. They've done an amazing job, and I'm not saying they can't. And if they do end up being the Tampa Bay Lightning, they will have deserved it. But just for myself personally, I think Tampa has taken control of the series from a number of perspectives. The 2 biggest stats that really jump out to me are this: even strength, 5-on-5. Right there's power play goals, as you guys know. Even you don't really need to know too much about hockey to know what the power play is. The New York Rangers have not scored a 5-on-5 goal in this series since Game 2. All their offense in the last 2 games has come on the power play, and that's not something that's sustainable, because Tampa's a decent penalty kill team. But if you can't beat this team 5-on-5, you're just not going to win, because you are not going to get enough power play chances. You're not going to get enough power play goals to beat this team, as the last 2 games has showed. And then is giveaways. So giveaways, in just the most basic way I could describe it, boys, think of it as kind of turnovers with the NBA, except giveaways happen way more often in hockey, with how it could go back and forth. The Tampa Bay Lightning in the first 2 games had a combined 60 giveaways in MSG against the Rangers. The last 2 games, Chris, do you want to venture a guess how many quote-unquote giveaways Tampa's had the last 2 games combined?
No, I don't know. I don't want to sound stupid, Jer.
No. It's fine. It's fine. But I want to hear your reaction. So, like I said, first 2 games, they had 60 combined, right?
Okay.
The last 2 games, Tampa Bay's combined giveaways in games 3 and 4, 15.
Damn, son. They locked in.
There is no team in the last 3 seasons now that when they lock in are better than the Tampa Bay Lightning. And that's why I'm saying Tampa's going to win this series. And it's nothing against the Rangers. It's just the fact that this has been the best team in hockey for the last 3 years. And I don't know if the Rangers can definitively do it because of these factors, like I said, and the fact that no matter who wins tonight, next game is an elimination game. Andrei Vasilevsky has been the best goaltender in elimination games in the last couple of playoffs. He is in Tampa's back-to-back runs. They've had the 2 Game 7s. He won both of them. And I believe both of them were shutouts, if I'm not mistaken. The Game 7 against Toronto in the first round this year, only 1 goal allowed. This dude just knows how to shut the door. And we saw in Game 3, Igor Shesterkin made about twice as many saves as Andrei Vasilevsky, and Tampa still won. So now you're telling me that Igor Shesterkin, he's best goalie in the league this specific season, he needs to be twice as good as elimination game Andrei Vasilevsky? I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen. Shesterkin has the capability. He's been outstanding. But I'm just going to chalk this up to the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to make it back to the Stanley Cup Finals. Come this time next week, we will know the Stanley Cup Final matchup. Will probably be a game or 2 into the Cup Final, honestly, by this time next week, which I'm excited for. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think it's going to be the Tampa Bay Lightning going up against the Colorado Avalanche, and that series is going to be just wild to say the very least. More breakdown of that, I'm not going to break down potential series here because that's going to take way too long. But between Colorado versus New York, Colorado versus Tampa, it's a guarantee entertaining Stanley Cup Final, which is all I ask for. It's going to be on ESPN, which is great. TNT, ESPN, they're going to be sharing the Stanley Cup Final for the next decade. I love it. Both sides have been great with covering hockey. I've said it a couple times on the show the last month and a half or so, but these Stanley Cup playoffs have been phenomenal. They've been covered great. They got a lot of people, and I think we're geared up here, boys, for on paper, I think what is the most entertaining Stanley Cup Final in quite a long time. I'm trying to think off the top of my head when the last great one was. A little bit of bias because I think 2015 was great because my Chicago Blackhawks won. But it's funny because I think of 2015, I think of a young Tampa Bay Lightning team. That was their first Stanley Cup Final appearance over the last little bit. And they faced the veteran Chicago team. And now you have this Tampa Bay Lightning team. They're battle-tested. A lot of this core is going for their 4th Stanley Cup Final, 3rd in a row. They won it back-to-back. They've won the President's Trophy, and now they're going up against a Rangers team that they're here for the first time, this core. And then they could go up against a Colorado Avalanche team that is there for the first time. And it's almost like a swap of what Tampa Bay was in 2015. They were the team with the young guys who were making it for the first time, and now they're the cup-winning veterans going up against these young teams. It's just it's poetry. It's the circle of life in the sports world, and that's what you love to see. But overall, the NHL playoffs have been absolutely outstanding, and we are gearing up here for what I think is going to be the best Stanley Cup Final on paper in a good bit. And that's all as a hockey fan I could ask for. I just want to be entertained. When it's not my team in it, I just want to be entertained.
And it's that simple. It's that simple. Built, not bought. That's what this podcast is. But anyway, yeah, that'll be it for NHL news. Beautifully put as always, Jurg. We move on over to the NFL world where contracts have been extended, fellas, by arguably the number 1 team in football. Possibly. Depends who you ask. But they have re-signed their cornerstones, I think, within the past week. They actually re-signed Stafford a few months ago, I believe. So they kind of locked up everyone. I know a lot of people are just losing their shit because of how the Rams are navigating the cap space in 2022. But hey, man, winning franchises, winning organizations do winning moves. So I don't know how they did it. I'm not going to go into it. I just know that they re-signed their 2 important players. So Jurg has the details, but just to give you guys a rundown, Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald have been extended. That's right. The Rams bring back their 2 championship players. And I'm going to let Jurg tell you the contract details. Jurg?
Yeah, so Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp, of course, two franchise cornerstones for the Los Angeles Rams, especially with Aaron Donald. He was a guy that was brought up in conversation ever since the Super Bowl when it came to his contract. Now, when it comes to Aaron Donald specifically, I believe it's you could technically classify it as an extension, but it's really more so like a restructure of a deal, and I think Dame can attest to this. Because there were a couple void years added on the back end of this deal in regards to Aaron Donald here specifically. But overall, the Rams completely restructured the payment of Donald for what the next 3 seasons are going to be. He's now on a 3-year, $95 million contract. Guaranteed at signing, according to what I'm seeing now on Spotrac, it's 46.5. I'm sure a large chunk of that, even more, is guaranteed. Just huge big time money for Aaron Donald, which is obviously deserved. Probably could have been the Super Bowl MVP back in the Super Bowl, multi-time defensive player of the year, the best defensive lineman we've seen in the game over the last decade or so. Aaron Donald's just been an absolute wrecking ball, to say the least, and of course he gets paid. And then Cooper Kupp's contract is the real contract extension. So Cooper Kupp had 2 years left on an original deal he signed from a couple years back, which was, I believe, a 3-year deal. And now this summer, this summer he gets a 3-year extension tacked onto that. 3 years at just under $80 million, bringing the total guarantees now over the next 5 years for him for at least like 75 plus mil. And the total deal, Dame, just back me up. I believe you said it was 5 years, 110 million, right? Is what it is? Yes. So that is the total of the 3 extra years added to the 2 that he still had left on his deal, and those are the contract extensions that the Rams signed for their two megastars, you could say. The receiving Triple Crown leader from last season, Cooper Kupp, gets paid. Dame, it's funny because I think Cooper Kupp was kind of an underrated name in regards to guys that were wide receivers getting paid this summer. We saw Tyreek Hill, we saw Devontae Adams, and AJ Brown, and Cooper Kupp's name was like low key because he still had some years left, but everyone was like, after the season he just had, he's going to ask for his money.
Yeah, I low key thought he was gonna demand the trade and go to the Jets. That's what my hope was.
Yeah, Chris, I'll let you take over from here, but like I think just for me, if I had to just give them what I think happened, I think the Rams saw what was happening with other teams, and I think I didn't even think they let Cooper Kupp's team come to him. I think they went to Cooper Kupp's team. It's like, hey, we want to keep him happy. Let's work on this deal now. I personally think that's what happened, and kudos to the Rams. They're a smart organization for doing that now.
Yeah, I agree. I think after all the Pandora's box that Christian Kirk opened, and after you saw the contracts are being handed out to wide receivers, you were just like, yeah, Cooper Kupp he might demand like that next mega contract. But like Cooper Kupp doesn't strike me as the type to like hold a team hostage for like financial means. Like he actually seems like a humble dude. I think for me, the more uncertain, the wild card was Aaron Donald because like I don't think he wanted to clown around with his contract. I think there may have been a possibility where if he didn't, have his demands met, then he would have retired. Actually, I know there's been like the whole rumor of him retiring, but I think he was the kind of the wild card and just kind of locking him down, years wise, money wise. But Cooper Kupp, I kind of expect him to stay, but props to the Rams for getting everything done early. And to be honest, from a logistics standpoint, why would you want to leave the Rams? Well, like there's no reason. They're gonna be a Super Bowl contender again. They have an opportunity to create a dynasty here, and I think locking up Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald solidifies that. So, I mean, why would you leave it? You're making generational wealth in Los Angeles. You're gonna compete for a Super Bowl every year. Again, smart organization, like you said, Jerg. So they're always gonna make these certain type of moves that will always put them in the top tier of the NFL. So if you're Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald, it's a no-brainer. You get your money, but again, you're playing for championships, which is kind of what it's all about. But having that type of wealth isn't as bad either. So, I mean, shout out to both of them. Like they're two of the best players in the NFL, and yeah, I'm excited. Like I don't hate the Rams. I know a lot of people hate this like overpowered structure that they have, but hey, man, they're not doing anything wrong, right? Are they doing anything like that bends the rules or no?
I think the NFL would have caught them if they did, but
there you go.
It just doesn't make sense how they're doing this with it.
Look, I'm a fan of winners. I like winners, so I like the Rams. But shout out to them. Yeah, the cup to the Jets' dream is officially dead, like Dame said. But we move. Hopefully, Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore pan out to be something like Cooper Kupp. Who knows? Who knows? Just, wishful thinking. But
you're being very wishful.
Yeah, I know. But then again, so is every Jets fan. But yeah, that's all I got to say about it. Is there what do we think, fellas? What do we make of
Well,
these
my
moves?
initial reaction was that he's just getting a straight up 3 for $80 million deal, and that averaged out to about $36 million a year. And I thought to myself, that's pretty insane. Like, I get it, he was the best wide receiver in football, but there's no possible way I was paying a wide receiver $36 million a year when the top quarterbacks are getting paid 40. Like, that was just insane. But then I read more into it, and it was kind of tacked on to end of the deal, and in totality it was 5 for 110, which averaged out to about 26 a year, which is below Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams. So then I looked at it like Cooper Kupp really is not all about himself, and he doesn't care about the top market. He doesn't care about being the top paid wide receiver in the league. He just cares about being in a situation that's good for him and a contract that's good for the Rams with him. Because he's not going to go to the best situation in the NFL. He's playing with Matthew Stafford, who obviously they're like best friends. He's getting 200 targets a year. Like, they obviously have a great connection. He isn't going to have it any better than he has on the Rams for a couple $1 million more or less a year if he goes to a different team, but he won't be as successful and as happy. Like, I think it worked out for both sides in that. And as for the Aaron Donald deal, like you said, he always contemplated retirement. Even before the Super Bowl, we saw reports that he might retire if he wins. So it was kind of not surprising, but we kind of expected it to be the retirement or contract extension. And then obviously he got paid the most of any defensive player in the league with the extension. Well, not really extension. It was kind of a pay raise, which he absolutely deserved. We saw the difference he made in the Super Bowl. And he's obviously been the best defensive player in the league for a few years now. So Aaron Donald absolutely deserved it. Cooper Kupp absolutely deserved it. And I still have no idea how the Rams are doing this. Probably by next year, they'll extend Jalen Ramsey in some way, somehow, to make him the highest paid defensive back in the league. So they'll figure out a way. Doesn't make sense. Maybe one day it'll catch up to them, but they probably look at it as like, as long as you have Matthew Stafford, as long as you have this core right now, we maximize what we have now, and then once that time comes where the cap hits actually hit, we'll deal with it then, because we would have put all we could into this core right now to win as many Super Bowls as you can right now.
And they signed Allen Robinson in free agency.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah. They probably still re-sign Odell at some point when he's back from injury.
That's crazy. I don't mind it. I really don't mind it. It's fun watching the Rams. It's fun watching them, and fuck the Tampa Bay Bucks. Fuck them. Fuck Tom Brady. Me and Dame have some mutual friends that are very not high on the whatever the Rams are doing. We have a particular Tom Brady fan in our friend group, if you want to call it that, that is very mad at these moves. But hey, screw it. I don't like super teams in NBA, but I like super teams in football. But because you can get away with it in football, like
it's a one game playoff. You lose, you out. Like, basketball is hard to compete against a real super team that you have to beat them 4 out of 7 games.
Yeah.
And one player makes more of a difference in basketball than football.
That is true. Okay, any final comments, or should we move on, or do you guys want to talk about something else with it?
I was just going to say, obviously happy for both guys. I think to Dame's point, you look at the situation with Cooper Kupp, and he was a former like 3rd, 4th round pick. He got his first extension, which was pretty good, and now he saw this opportunity again. I really think it was probably both sides saying how, hey, Cooper loves it here, he wants to stay, and the Rams are probably like, hey, we know that all these guys have gotten paid, let's get you paid here. I think this was a case where both sides just mutually agreed to get this done early, if I had to guess. And I think it's a stand-up job by both sides, really. Cooper Kupp still gets his bag, but I think he's still, like, the thing with both these contracts is there's still flexibility for the Rams. Like, people always talk about the salary cap in the NFL is a social construct, and it really kind of is when you think about it. Like, the salary cap just doesn't exist. But it's the good teams. Like, this is the funny part. It's the good teams that are doing this the best. It's the Packers, with the whole situation they had to deal with at the beginning of this offseason. Granted, they did lose Devontae Adams, but they still were able to keep Aaron Rodgers. It was them with Rodgers. It's the Buccaneers still trying to figure everything out with Brady staying in the fold. It's the Los Angeles Rams now with Stafford, Donald, and Kupp. And like Dame said, probably a year or two from now, they're going to re-up on Ramsey because he's probably going to want to be the highest paid corner in the game again. It's all these different things that great organizations do. And you got to give the Rams all the credit in the world for being able to do this and keep this championship core together. And they still, I think with Stafford, with Donald, with Cup, like there's still a window here. There's still a 3 to 4 year window for this organization. I think what I love is when teams can recognize who they are, what they are, and how long they are, and it doesn't happen that often. I think the Rams have realized that they have a championship window, and they're trying to make the most of it during this time. I really think they have that. I think the Chiefs have realized it too, as well. Packers have had all the time in the world. They can't figure that out. I can't say anything about Green Bay, but the Chiefs and the Rams, I think, have realized they have a championship window, and I think they're trying to take full advantage of it. And I absolutely love it. I love it when teams take advantage of their time at the top, because at some point you will fall again. And that's going to happen to the Rams at some point, but not anytime soon. Getting these two absolute beasts of in the NFL locked in. Great job overall for them.
Yeah. Pro Rams talk this week. Pro Rams talk. All right, let's move on over to the NBA, where we are in the NBA Finals. 3 games have been played. Game 4 is tomorrow, which is Friday. The Boston Celtics lead the series 2-1. And now, fellas, we have some stuff to talk about. So game 1, Celtics win in Golden State. That, I guess we could all say that the Warriors choked, and man, are we getting old to the point where we're saying the Golden State Warriors choked. I don't think we've been able to say that like ever so far in like this dynasty run that they've had, but they finally choked, and they had the game for the they were ahead for the majority of the game, and then they just collapsed in the fourth quarter. Boston Celtics go nuclear in the fourth from 3, particularly. I think Al Horford had 6 threes. Derek White went off. I think Marcus Smart had a good game, whereas Jason Tatum was awful the first game. And I think that's what I said in my prediction in terms of who's going to win the series. It's which role players are going to step up. And so far, man, it's been the Celtics. Game 2, Warriors win in Golden State. They kind of blow them out. It's funny because like this whole series, each of the first half of these games have been great. They've been really back and forth. And it's kind of where like the second half where just things like kind of go haywire. And then Golden State annihilates them in the second half. They tie the series. Then yesterday, Celtics dominate most of the game. Third quarter kamikaze from the Warriors to come back and take the lead for a brief moment. And then the Celtics they kind of countered it, and they actually like stood their ground, and they kind of took it back in the fourth. So Celtics up 2-1. Fellas, I think we predicted a really good series, and to be honest, to be fair, it actually has been a good series. It's been a very weird series because, again, as I said, the first half of each game has been elite, very close, and then the Warriors do what they do in the third quarter, kamikaze runs, and then in the fourth quarter, the Celtics go on their runs, whereas the Warriors collapse, and it's weird. I think the Warriors just went up by too much in game 2 to a point where like it was kind of out of reach by the fourth, but yeah, I think we said this before. Steph Curry needs to go nuclear, and Steph Curry has. He's kind of been the only one of the Warriors that's actually been consistent. So I think it's kind of done, by the way. If the Warriors do win this, the unanimous finals MVP has to be Steph Curry for them. There's literally no one else putting as much work in him. No one else putting as much work as he is. Clay, man, the first 2 games he was abysmal, and that's tough saying as a Klay Thompson fan, but he kind of bounced back. Game 3, still a little bit inefficient, but he did bounce back compared to the first 2 games. We'll talk about Draymond Green. I think we should talk about Draymond Green last, but I want to say this. I do want to say this. After all the hype I've been hearing about Jordan Poole, he has gotten progressively worse as the playoffs have gone by. Had a really good first round against the Nuggets. Kept hearing the nonsense. So Jordan Poole, bro, is better than RJ Barrett. Because we have a bunch of Warriors fans, me and Dame, a bunch of Warriors friends that like to talk hot, heat of the moment type dudes, but it's okay. He's been pretty ass this final in this series, and apparently I think it was before game 3 he was like second in finals MVP.
No, absolutely ridiculous. Second for what? Two long threes?
That's absurd.
That puts you second in finals MVP. Doesn't make.
Yeah, Jordan Poole has been ass. I don't want to hear it right now. There's been no excuse. Like, defensively, oh my God, bro. He has been awful. And then
he's not good at defense. He's just not.
But, like, I know he's not, but, like, it's, like, really, like, bad to watch.
No,
like,
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying, like, Jordan Poole, he deserves all the credit for what he did. There was a reason he was a most improved player of the year candidate for the regular season, like, relatively speaking. But we can tell if the scoring isn't there, it's
And it
hard to say
hasn't.
what he does for you because
He's
you're right,
non-existent on the court.
Like,
Go ahead, Drew.
No, I was just gonna say, to your point, his scoring has gone down every single series in the playoffs. It was at 21 in the first round. I think just about 17, 18 in the second round, 15, 16 in the conference finals, and I think right now he's averaging like 12 a game. That's terrible.
On like pretty bad shooting, I believe. I don't know. Check the stats on that one, but he just doesn't. He's not effective on the court. He's not impactful, and boy, do they need someone to step up on offense besides Steph, because man, that dude is like carrying the team on his back right now. It's just like Wiggins has been really good defensively, but like you can't like guarantee what type of like offensive game he's gonna have that game. Like you don't know if he's gonna be on one on offense or if he's just gonna be inconsistent. He probably is inconsistent because that's just Andrew Wiggins. Like we gotta give him credit for like what he's done defensively, but like offensively, you never know what you get. You never know what you're gonna get from him. Yeah, but so Draymond Green will be the main event here, but let's talk about the Celtics real quick. Tatum was atrocious game 1. Game 2, he stepped up in the first half, but then again, the second half, like the Celtics just got slaughtered. So I think he had like 21 in the first half. He had like 5 threes, but still,
not a superstar.
I agree with you, Dame. I do agree with you, actually. I'm sorry. We're not hating. I'm just, God's telling his truth right now. But he is an offensive machine, but he's not a superstar. But anyway, so I think Al Horford has been great for them. I think one of the keys for the Celtics, if they were to like win this series, was that they were gonna have to punish the Warriors on the interior. I think their size and their physicality were gonna overwhelm the Warriors, and they have actually. Al Horford has been great, especially defensively as well, but he's been scoring too. Marcus Smart has had a quiet, good series actually. You know what he does for you defensively, but he's been pretty decent on offense. Derek White, wow. I mean, the first half of these playoffs, he stepped it up the last 2 series, and he's been killing it. Started against Miami, and now it's carried over against the Warriors, so shout out to him.
Little do we know he was Ray fucking Allen from 3 after he had a kid.
And then I think Finals MVP right now, if the Celtics win the championship, Finals MVP has to be Jaylen Brown. Yeah. I think we all agree on that. He has been phenomenal this series. Phenomenal. Both ends, he's kind of picked up the scoring slack, especially when Tatum kind of struggles. So he's been doing it on both ends. He's been targeting Draymond too. Like he has been like, dude, he's been making Draymond look average on defense when he's like kind of matched up with him. So shout out to Jaylen Brown, man. Did I say Jaylen Brown or did I say Jalen Green? Probably
Jaylen Brown. You're good.
Okay. Okay, I don't have dementia yet. So yeah, shout out to Jaylen Brown. But again, I said this before. It's up to the role players. Which role players will step up, and it's been the Celtics. It has been the Celtics. Besides like game 2 because they just got blitzed. But we all expected that after game 1. Like we kind of knew the Warriors would like take game 2 like way seriously. But they're in the driver's seat right now, 2-1. I know I said do we all say Warriors in 7 besides Dame? You said Warriors in 6?
Yeah.
Oof. Well, I mean, look, everything's still in play, but man, dude, Celtics look really effing good. Really effing good. But let's get to the Draymond dilemma. He has been, I saw the stat last night, 15 points this whole series, 15 fouls. That is absurd. Draymond has been, I mean, he does his thing defensively, but I don't know, there's been possessions where he's been getting cooked this series. And like I said, against Jaylen Brown was an example, but man, Draymond Green has been bad. He's been bad. Let's be straight up about it. He's been bad. But man, the whole discussion is that my boy recording podcasts right after games, like right after games. I mean, you should pull up for like an episode with us one day. But but it's just like, god damn, my son really just heads to the mic right after the games, and like he said it himself, he's kind of focused on the outside noise. He's been too focused on that as opposed to the actual game, and that's been kind of holding him back. But man, yeah, I don't know. Draymond's been playing bad. He's focused on the wrong things. It's kind of hurting the Warriors a lot, especially like because like Steph Curry is your main guy, but like if Draymond isn't like playing at a high level, it's just everyone kind of like falters a little bit because we always say he's the engine of that team. He is arguably the best playmaker in that team. He kind of elevates everyone. Steph will do his thing, but if Draymond Green is kind of, 2 steps behind, the whole team is. So it's been showing him kind of being ass has had a gargantuan effect on the team, actually. But I think he'll turn it around. I especially think after this whole fiasco, after Game 3, especially with how poor he played, he's going to turn around. I think the intensity will build up a bit, especially because Grant Williams, Jaylen Brown, and it seems like everyone on the Celtics team is like beefing with him. So I think Draymond will. He's a smart dude. He'll know to like turn on the engines. But again, they're down 2-1, so I'm pretty sure they'll be focused. I really thought during that third quarter kamikaze for Game 3 that they were going to take the game, and I was like, damn, the Celtics, bro, they really. Jeez, I mean, every team struggles against the Warriors, especially in the third quarter when they just turn on the engines. But they countered. If you could counter a third quarter kamikaze from the Warriors, then you're in good hands. You're in good hands. But right now, Celtics look like they're going to win the championship, fellas. From what I've seen so far, it's them right now. But we can't switch our picks. But Game 4s.
I mean, we could.
I mean, we could, but then it's kind of cheap. But like Game 4s are like series definers in my opinion. Like those are the most important games in my opinion. Like Celtics either go up 3-1, and if they're up 3-1, I think the Warriors are capable of coming back from 3-1, but the Celtics, they're a different breed now. I think they kind of like they don't lose back-to-backs. They don't lose back-to-backs. Like that's impressive. But if it's 2-2, then I think the Warriors are right back in it, and then I think our predictions are still alive. But if I do think if the Celtics are up 3-1, again, I do think the Warriors are capable of coming back from down 3-1, but I don't know, man. Celtics are a different beast now. They look so good to a point where I think that it might end in 6 if they go up 3-1 because I think the Warriors will, take a game in gentrified Oracle, and then I think they'll end it in Boston. But that's just me. I've rambled enough. So, what do you think of this series so far? What do you think of everything I said? Do you agree? Do you disagree? The whole Draymond dilemma. Talk to me.
So a lot of different things to point out. So let me go a little bit game by game. The reason why the Boston Celtics are up 2-1 in this series is because they have taken advantage of two different things with Golden State in
turnovers.
Yes, turnovers being one of them, and just size. I think Game 3 really showed that Robert Williams and Al Horford have made a big difference, but especially Robert Williams. Again, if Robert Williams had been healthy for at least 70 games of the regular season, I think he would have been the defensive player of the year, and that's my opinion.
Dude, Robert Williams has been amazing this series. Amazing. That's like him. I don't know if I brought him up, but him and Horford, bro. Especially Robert Williams. This is where, Jerg, I don't know about you, but I've been saying this for a while. It's just like the Warriors, and I know Draymond can play center, but their lack of like size was eventually going to catch up to them.
Oh yeah,
and it is finally caught up to them. And Robert Williams, not even being 100%, looking like a dominant ass center. He's always been good. I've always liked Robert Williams. There's some like mature like character issues that he had, but the talent was all there. And man, is he making them pay, man. That dude, they can't like kind of drive in. They can't score in the perimeter as much. They can't score in the interior as much because he's just threatening every shot.
Well, it's funny because I think you mentioned it. I think it's funny to think we've seen the Golden State Warriors win all these series against good big men, like throughout their dynastic run. They beat the grit and grind Memphis Grizzlies at the end that had Zach Randolph and Marcus Hall. They beat Anthony Davis in a playoff series twice, I want to say, when he was in New Orleans. They defeated the Denver Nuggets here earlier in these playoffs. Like, they can beat regular good offensive big men. And I think with how the Suns played, the Suns somehow made it to the conference finals. We all agreed that the Warriors would have defeated the Suns. But they can't, like, the big man that is their kryptonite is the Robert Williams mold. This defensive player of the year caliber guy who Robert Williams, for all intents and purposes, he knows how to play the inside game almost better than any other big in the league. Now, I'm not talking about like post moves and having a bag in the paint. I'm not saying he's a Hakeem Olajuwon. What I'm saying is that, like, just filling the lanes, being there at the right moment, meeting guys at the rim every single time, and grabbing offensive rebounds. So this is what I was going to say. So in Game 1, the big difference was the fact that the Celtics took advantage of the Warriors' defense. Part of the reason why Tatum had the bad game was how hyper focused the Warriors were on him. But because they were so focused on Tatum in Game 1, we saw he had double-digit assists. That hyper focus, they were leaving guys early. They were trying to get past screens, trying to cheat that. They were sending the double way too early, leaving guys open. They were doing everything that you technically think you're supposed to do on a star/superstar. But the problem is that they sacrifice so much defensively to the point where the rest of the Celtics, like you said, got theirs. Derek White, fourth quarter, a couple threes. Marcus Smart had a good game. Al Horford with all the threes that he hit. Like the Celtics took advantage of that. Game 2, of course, like you said, Warriors just went nuclear. There's not much that you can do about that. But then in Game 3, we really saw that the Boston Celtics, they're a better defensive team than Golden State. I think. Let's be real here.
Easily.
They're a better defensive team. Like Klay Thompson, and he was a pretty good wing defender at his peak, but one ACL and one Achilles later, he's just not the same defensive player he used to be anymore. Jordan Poole, like we said, is a bad defender off the bench. Draymond Green. It's funny because I was actually looking at Draymond's resume yesterday just because I was bored at work. I didn't realize he's made the All-NBA defensive team 7 times in his career, and he led the league in steals back in 2017, and he's won a Defensive Player of the Year. Some of that I knew, but the 7 All-Defensive teams really surprised me. I don't think Draymond Green is the player we think he is anymore defensively. I think fundamentally, yes, I think he has the IQ, but I don't know if he can make the same defensive impact anymore. And I think it really shows that Tatum or Jaylen Brown, they just get whatever they want and they'll hit whatever they want in this series against Draymond, Gary Payton. Which shout out to him for coming back from that elbow injury early and like playing the best he can defensively. Him and Andrew Wiggins are trying, but like there's just nothing you could do when it comes to the talent that they're facing. I think Boston, their stars are just playing great, and at the end of the day, it's kind of what I said last week. Now, granted, it's not exactly coming to fruition, so I'm a little bit off there, but. I said this last week. Who would you rather have and who would you rather trust? Would you rather trust the guys who are closer to two-way wings, or would you rather trust a point guard? And I'm sorry, I love Steph, but I said I trust the two-way wings to perform more, and they're making the bigger difference in the series right now. Granted, I mainly pointed out Jason Tatum last week, but shout out to Jaylen Brown. Like you said, I think it's between the two of them right now for Finals MVP. Both very similar numbers. Jaylen Brown's been great two-way, but I think Jason Tatum, what he's meant for them offensively, like when Jason Tatum's going offensively, then the rest of the team just goes. I think the two of them have made the biggest impact possible in this series. I saw the stat yesterday. It's like the two of them have combined for 1,000 points together, and they're the second duo ever to do that, but like both being the age of 25 or below or something along those lines. Like 1,000 points in these playoffs between the two is just absolutely wild. No, Boston has just been... They're playing like a championship team. And I don't think we mentioned it last week, but I heard someone say that this finals had the feeling of the 2004 finals, where the Pistons took down the Shaq and Kobe with Gary Payton and Karl Malone Lakers. And at first I kind of thought to it, it's like, you know what? I can sort of see it, but I'm not sure. I really do see the comparisons now. And I think Boston has Golden State right where they want them. And I know we're not going to switch our predictions, but if I had the opportunity to switch, I think I would lean towards Boston right now.
As much as it pains us.
From what we've seen these first 3 games, the Boston Celtics have been the best team on the floor in the NBA Finals for majority of the time. I just want to note real quick, the Stephen Curry injury will be something to see in Game 4. If Golden State doesn't step up for him, I don't even care if they win. If Steph still needs to have a big game and Golden State can't provide for themselves offensively, I think the Celtics are going to win because right now is the time you need to step up for Steph. Final point now, Draymond. I will say he is highly entertaining, and I can't wait for when he actually does retire so he can do this stuff full time, both with his podcast and on TNT, because they've signed him already for whenever he retires, and he'll be the perfect replacement for Charles Barkley. But I mean, I kind of already said it. I just don't think Draymond has the same impact that he did when he was in his peak years physically. I think he's still a good player, but I think the time has passed for the impact that this core had. Like, all the credit in the world to the fact that Golden State and this core have made 6 finals for themselves. Once again, Klay Thompson, 6 straight finals. Suck it if you disagree. But I just think, like, hey, every dynasty comes to an end. Every single team, like, falls. The Shaq and Kobe Lakers fall. The Big 3 Heat fall. LeBron's dominance over the league. Maybe some people think that might be over. All the great empires in the history of this world end up falling one day. And if the Celtics end up being the Warriors here, I think we could actually talk about it, because this is not... I know Steph just got hurt here, but this is the Warriors at 100%. You don't get the Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant missed the whole series excuse like you did in 2019. You don't get to cry about the fact that Draymond Green missed a game like in the 2016 finals, which he still got 41 dropped on him, and LeBron still dropped the triple-double. So shut the hell up. You lost that series fair and square. Like, you don't get an excuse this time to hang your hat on. If the Celtics win, they won this fair and square. They beat you fair and square. They're the rightful champions, and I think you could actually look at this dynasty being over unless they make a drastic move to really alter this team. Because I don't think this core, as constructed, can win a championship if they lose this series. I don't think they could win anymore if they lose this series because Boston is great, and I would be saying the same thing if they were facing like Milwaukee. Because God, like we're talking about what Al Horford and Robert Williams would have done. What would Giannis do to this team? Like,
Oh, Jesus.
It's just different. So, yeah, I think the Golden State Warriors, if they don't win game 4 in a total team effort, I think the series is a wrap, and I think Boston's going to end up taking it. Selfishly, I want the Celtics. If the Celtics are going to win, please, Boston, can you win in 5? Because I am off of work if the Celtics can win this in 5. So please win this in 5 for me so I can not have to be at work doing all that. Thank you. Thank you, Boston. But yeah, that's all I have to say about it.
Damn, could you imagine the Warriors losing in 5? Holy shit.
They might. They might. Because like you said,
business.
Chris, I know you make the joke, but at the end of the day, that's not the same arena as Oracle. Like when Golden State won, okay, granted they were on the road for it, but when they won Game 5 and went into Game 6 against Toronto, at least you had the suspicion that they could maybe win that Game 6 because Oracle was still it.
Yeah.
Chase Center is not Oracle, man. It's just not.
It's just rich people, man. It's just rich people. It's just people that could afford the tickets, especially in San Francisco. Kind of wild.
Now they're complaining about.
Yeah, Boston fans are scum, but like I always find it funny when like players' wives get involved in this, saying it's pretty
Draymond
disgusting
Green,
and
oh
this and
my God.
that. Yeah, and it's just
They're
like
saying "F you, Draymond," like that's some crazy stuff that you've never heard before in your life.
Draymond hasn't helped himself, man. Like, and F you, Draymond. I think we've heard that before, and it's just
You've
like
heard that about everybody.
if there's one player that's kind of like
Trae Young be getting that every time he goes to New York.
Yeah,
bro.
that's one thing. Like, I hate Trae Young. I think he's a scumbag. But like, at least he kind of took that in stride. He took that in
Yeah.
stride. Like, but like Draymond, who's been talking shit his whole career, just jawing back and forth, either the fans or the refs or whatever, the media. Like, bro, like, you could dish, but you can't take it at this point. And look, he hasn't said much. Like, but in terms of that aspect, but his wife has. So I don't know, man. It's just come on now, guys.
Can I say one thing real quick before Dame goes? My bad, Dame.
Go ahead.
Did you? I don't know if you guys saw it. I saw it because I had to listen to it. Did you guys see the back and forth Draymond had with a reporter in
I
media?
saw
about the podcast thing? Yes, bro. I saw that. I was laughing my ass off when I was hearing it. And then after the guy's question, after he had the back and forth with the guy, he brought up X's and O's again as a joke and like 2 other questions from other reporters. And I'm like dang, Draymond, why are you going at this guy? Like, okay, I'll admit, like, I think reporters sometimes just say stupid things, and I think some reporters do need to do a better job. But the guy, I don't think it warranted you freaking throwing shade at him a couple more times. Like,
but that's how you know Draymond's head is not in the right space right now. That's how you know he's kind of off. Like in terms of just like what he's focusing on. Like he's not focused on the right things. Like, bro, how are you getting your feelings hurt over like a reporter just kind of throwing shade at your podcast? Like, he knew it was gonna be the topic of a conversation. Like, come on, bro. You just got you just got beat up by the Celtics. Like, dude, who cares about a reporter? But it's Draymond. He's an overly emotional guy. I'm not really surprised that he kind of like kept doing it, but it just shows where his priorities are at this moment. But yeah, Dame, me and Jer kind of spoke on it. What's your take on the series so far?
Yeah, so I'm still on the side that I think the Warriors are gonna win, but it's definitely not how I expected the series to go. I expected the Warriors to have a lot more contributors than just Steph averaging 30. I can't really tell you who's been their second best player. Before yesterday, I would have probably said Draymond because he hasn't scored a lot or whatever, but he's done everything else. And then he had an awful game yesterday, and then Klay had a great game. And obviously Jordan Poole's a no-show, and I can't really tell you who's been their second best player. And this is probably the first time ever I can say confidently that Steph doesn't have any help. But as for the Celtics side, like, it's just everybody's contributing. Like, anywhere you need from defense to 3-point shooting to playmaking to just being a leader, like, they're getting contributions from everybody. Obviously, their best player, Jason Tatum, hasn't been the player he's been throughout most of these playoffs. But then he hasn't been bad enough where he's really hurting them. And you have, obviously, Jaylen Brown stepping up. You have Marcus Smart, Al Horford, Derek White, all these guys stepping up to make up for that, and even more than that as well. That's something I definitely didn't expect to happen. And they're playing incredible defense to try to stop the Warriors and really kind of letting Steph do Steph because it's extremely hard to really shut him down. So they're kind of letting him do what he does, but limiting everybody else around him. So it makes it harder on Steph and puts more pressure on him that to be that great. And like you guys already mentioned, like Robert Williams, like he's been absolutely incredible, even in the limited time that he's had. Just the paint presence he has on offense and on defense, just starting on offense, being able to be that roller to the basket that they could just throw the ball up to and he can alley it up, or the offensive rebounds, and just being a target for all these guards in these pick and rolls and pick and pops to just throw it up to Robert Williams and he can make a play. And obviously on the defensive end, like it's really hard for the Warriors to score in the paint. They just don't really have any real slashers or penetrators to start with. But then when you put Robert Williams in that middle, like he's just, whether he's contesting or blocking it, he's making it extremely hard for the Warriors to score inside the paint and really making their offense one-sided by just shooting from the perimeter. So I think Robert Williams has been a real key in that offense and defense. Hopefully he stays healthy. I know every game is kind of questionable. But just for the sake of having good finals and for the sake of the Celtics, like hopefully he stays healthy going forward. But overall, my take on the series is it's not how I expected it to start, but I'm still confident enough in the Warriors to win. I think they're going to win Game 4. They'll tie it up. Then going into Game 5 at home, they'll definitely have momentum. And they probably take that, and then they just have to win one of the next two, whether it's in Boston or in Golden State. And that's something I think they'll be able to do. Something that I saw while we were recording that's interesting is I know we see how great Steph has been playing throughout these finals and how he's averaging 30. But just throw this out there. Have we seen his fourth quarter stats in these finals?
Yeah, he's been pretty bad in the fourth.
He has 6 total points in all the fourth quarters, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. He's shooting 3 for 10, 0 for 3 from 3, and he's a minus 30 plus minus. That's total. That's not an average in the fourth. Those are his totals in the fourth quarter. That's a bad fourth quarter to just have in one game. But that's what he's had throughout all these fourth quarters combined. So as much as he's been great, obviously I think it was game 1 where he had like 20-something in the first quarter. You could be great throughout the first 3 quarters, especially during that third quarter stretch where the Warriors just go crazy. If you can't finish off the game and you average, I guess the average would be 2 points a quarter throughout the fourth quarter in these finals, and you're shooting 30%. And haven't made a 3, that's concerning going forward. Like, you're not going to be able to finish off this series or any other games moving forward if you're shooting that bad. If you're the leader, offensive leader of this team, and the guy who's obviously pretty much the favorite if they win for the finals MVP, you can't be that bad to close out games. Like, it's always been a thing where people talk about how Steph hasn't been that great in the finals, or he hasn't been clutch, or he is not able to finish under the biggest moment. But this is really putting into perspective how bad he has been in the fourth quarter. Like, I think the Warriors, or honestly Steph, would rather him be kind of consistent throughout the game and go off in the fourth instead of going off in the beginning of the game and be bad in the fourth. So that's just something to keep an eye on. If that continues, then obviously I don't think the Warriors are going to win. But I just have faith in the Warriors, and especially Steph Curry, that the team won't be as bad in the fourth, and he won't be as bad as the fourth. And they'll be able to close out games that they should be winning.
So I'll say this to play devil's advocate. Like, I agree with you, Steph, does need to be better in the fourth, but I do think, because, last game, yesterday, some pretty bad turnovers late in the game, man. Like, that kind of, like, changed it was done at that point. Like, those turnovers kind of solidified the L for the Warriors. We talk about this. I think me and Jerk had a convo about this. This was when you were off, Dame. We were talking about, like, the load he has to, like, carry offensively. By the time the fourth quarter comes, this is why the Warriors, and this kind of leads to another point that I'm going to make. By the end of the game, I think he's just too fatigued at that point, especially because, like, the Warriors don't have anyone else that could step up offensively. So by the time the fourth quarter comes and it's kind of like, if it's close, then I just think the fatigue factor kind of sets in. We talk about the heliocentric offense, Jerk, with Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
And, like, by the end, he's kind of shot. I think I'm getting some of that vibe here, because no one else could step up offensively. And especially when you're going against a defense like the Boston Celtics, like they're going to smother you. So I'm not surprised that, like, Steph has had pretty mediocre fourth quarters. Just think he's done so much in the beginning of the game, and just because, like, no one else could do anything. Props to the Celtics for keeping it close to the point where they're just, like, taking advantage of Steph's fatigueness. And this leads me to the other point. and I've noticed this since the beginning of the Warriors dynasty. If you're neck and neck with them going into the fourth, they're a beatable team. The Warriors rely on that third quarter kamikaze so much for their success that if you could withstand it, if you could withstand the storm in that third quarter, you have a good chance of beating them.
Yeah.
Like they are beatable. They're not. I don't think they're a great clutch team. In the clutch, they're not that great, man. It's like if you can keep up with them in the third quarter, then you have a good shot of beating them, in my opinion. And then, especially like with Steph kind of doing everything he can in the first 2.5, 3 quarters, he's going to be fatigued by the fourth, and then you take advantage in the fourth because there's no one else to kind of create their shot. So, I mean, Celtics, ever since like 2016 when this run started for them, they have struggled against the Celtics, even during the Isaiah Thomas days. Like the Celtics have been the one team that could kind of match up with them pretty well. They've had success against them, but also like that's the one team that they kind of struggle with the most. So, and it's kind of carried on to today. So, I mean, shout out to the Celtics, bro. Like they game plan well, they're coached well, great defense. Like it's a team oriented defense. It's like not individual. They have so many good defenders. Like even Tatum isn't the best defender, but like he will hold his ground on that end. So that's all I got to say about it. Any final comments, fellas?
So from what you guys were talking about with Steph, I had to look it up. So shout out here to statmuse.com, which is a site that a lot of different places, podcast organizations use, etc. for stats. I pulled up because, my opinion, even before this finals, I've never liked Steph as a fourth quarter player in the NBA finals. And here are the stats that back it up. In 31 career games in the NBA Finals, for just the fourth quarter, Steph's averages in the fourth quarter are 6.7 points, 1.5 rebounds, 1.2 assists. And I don't know if I have the shooting here necessarily. So his three-point shooting is not bad in the fourth. It's 41%, but it's only 2.5 threes attempted in the fourth quarter in his finals career. And his overall field goal percentage is just 44.7%. Man, I need more. And I know, like, and this moment gets memed, but back in, I think it was the 2019 finals, when Max Kellerman did the whole thing between, like, one shot to save the human race or whatever, I want Iguodala, as everyone always jokes. But I don't think Steph has never been the most clutch player on this team. I don't think he's really the guy you want in the most important games to take those big shots. And I think this is just another example of it. I get what you're saying, Chris, in terms of fatigue, but we killed LeBron James after the 2011 NBA Finals.
For sure.
We murdered him. No, as a Heat fan, for an entire effing year, I had to hear the fact that my superstar could not perform in the fourth quarter of the NBA Finals. Why are we not holding Steph to this standard in the fourth quarter? 6.7 points per game.
He gets leeway. He gets too much leeway.
This is insane. This is absurd. If this was Kevin Durant, we'd be killing him. If this was Kyrie Irving, we'd be making so many memes about how because the earth is flat, he can only do this or something of the sorts. Like, we are killing every other super. For the 2 years that Giannis was the back-to-back MVP, we would kill him. If these were his stats, we would be saying he shouldn't be the MVP for back-to-back years, which is stupid because, NBA fans. But, like, why is he getting this leeway? No, I don't care. I'm sorry. I said earlier, I do think the team needs to step up, but the fourth quarter needs to be your time. If we've had to have the expectations for Kobe, for LeBron, for Durant, for all these guys, if we were told that another ring here would solidify your legacy in the top four, when Stephen A wants to try to say that if Curry matches LeBron in rings, then maybe he's higher up than LeBron.
Can we not bring that name up?
But I'm just saying, if people have the audacity to bring up Steph in these conversations, he needs to show up. Like this is unacceptable. 6.7 points per game. 31 finals games. That's not a small sample size. 30 NBA finals games. Fourth quarter, 6.7 points per game. Do more. I don't care. You got to do more.
Do more. And it's that simple. Just do more. Do more. Yeah, man. I do think the flack has caught up to him. I do think a lot of people are starting to like criticize him a bit more in that regard. Like, I don't think he's. I mean, I guess he's like the NBA's quote unquote golden boy in that regard because he's like. I mean, me and Jerk know the phrase. He's the baby face of the NBA. That's why, like, I don't think he gets as much flack as he should. But I do think it's starting to catch up to him, especially in the clutch. all that aside, they need to win Game 4. I think Game 4 is a must-win for the Warriors, which is so absurd to say now. Like 2022, like it's a must-win game for the Warriors. Didn't think we'd get to this point, but here we are. Yeah, I think. Even if they win Game 4, man, I still don't think they're in the driver's seat to win the series. Like Dame said, it's a little bit more favorable in their direction. But Celtics, man, they're good. They're a good team.
Until the Warriors, my bad, but until the Warriors take the lead in the series, I'm not going to have confidence in them taking it.
Yeah. I feel you. Yeah, I think that'll do it for this week. What an episode. Yeah. Jurg, where can they find us on the socials?
What a way to end the episode. Scorching. Just absolute flames from all of us about this series. For more flaming hot takes, you have to continue to listen to this podcast on a weekly basis. You can, find us on YouTube, Somewhat Based in Sports, and on Spotify as well with a very similar thing to hear our weekly uploads with our amazing editor and fearless leader, he himself, who gets this podcast up on a weekly basis and has been doing so for a very long time. We appreciate you, Chris. And in regards to following us and what we do, at SomeWhat.Sports on Instagram, we put up the daily polls for these playoffs. Poll's going to go up later for what you want to vote on, if it's going to be Rangers or Lightning that take Game 5, ladies and gentlemen. And the polls are going to continue to go up as we reach the very end of these NHL and NBA playoffs. And of course, we're going to have a lot more activity here coming up. It's the NHL offseason. It's the NBA offseason. Guarantee we're going to do fun stuff with regards to the offseason. We have some stuff that we have planned here for the show. Just a lot of planning here. It is the Somewhat Sports summer of 2022. It is going to be even better than last summer for us. And it's just going to be a fun time here. And if you're with us, stick around and let's enjoy this ride.
Beautifully put, as always, Jurg. Appreciate you so much. So like Jurg said, follow us on all the socials, all that good stuff. Jurg and Dame, phenomenal work as always. To all of our listeners listening, if you made it this far, we appreciate you very, very much. And until next time, peace.